Good evening. Welcome to Kent County Levy Court business meeting for Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. Prior to opening the business part of the meeting, I'll turn it over to the county administrator to explain how those that wish to join us by phone and our WebEx can do so. Sir, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This meeting is being held in person at 555 Bay Road, Dover, Delaware, in Levy Court Chambers. We also are making it available via the internet through WebEx. Participants can join us by phone or by computer during the meeting. There will be opportunities for public comment for those attending in person or online. When the president opens a public comment period, those attending in person may step forward to one of the two podiums and be recognized. If you're joining us by phone and wish to comment, please press star 3, which will raise your electronic hand. Our operator will identify you and bring you into the meeting. Pressing star 6 will mute and unmute your line. If you're online, you'll see a hand and microphone icon at the bottom of your screen. Please use those at the appropriate times. We ask guests to be in public comments by stating your name and address for the record. We ask that the comments relate to the subject announced by the president. In addition to public hearings, there are 2 public comment periods, one at the beginning of the meeting for items on the agenda and one near the end of the meeting for general comments. This meeting is being recorded and will follow the rules of procedure adopted by the Levy Court as well as the Mason's Rules of Order. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public business meeting and call it to order. I'll ask Commissioner Maston to lead us in the invocation. Commissioner Angel, Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Sweeney will give us comments on a moment of silence for our troops and first responders. All rise, please.
Precious Lord, please give us guidance in this meeting because a lack of guidance causes a nation to fail. But victory is won through many advisors. Lord, let us not be misguided in this meeting so that we do not lead to decisions that produce ineffective results. I pray that you direct our steps so that this meeting can achieve our kingdom aims. We place you at the center of this. Amen.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence for military, law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, and other first responders who have given their lives in the line of duty. Please remember these individual first responders who died in the line of duty, as well as keeping their families in your thoughts and prayers as they deal with the loss of their loved ones. Detective Ryan So from the Scottsdale Police Department, Arizona. K-9 Koba from the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. Some of you may wonder why I mention K-9s and the law enforcement deaths. K-9 Koba was killed when throwing his body in front of another police officer and was shot and killed by a violator. So also include firefighter Kenneth Caldwell from the La Crosse Volunteer Fire Department in Indiana. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sweeney. Ms. Tanaka, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Angel?
Present.
Mr. Hall?
Here.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Present.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Sweeney?
Here.
Mr. Pepper?
Here.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 present.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Need a motion on the adoption of this evening's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Sweeney, second by Commissioner Scott. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, can we have roll call again, Ms. Tanaka?
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals this evening's agenda has been adopted. The next item on the agenda is what the county administrator spoke of earlier. This is public comments pertaining to anything that's on the agenda that is not covered by a public hearing. This is on the agenda, anything on the agenda that is not covered by a public hearing. Now is the time to make public comments. There are 2 items on the agenda other than public hearing items. Not now. No. you'll make comments about the agenda?
I'd like to make public comments if I can.
That part would be at the end of the meeting. There's a public comment section then. This is only for part, anything to do with the agenda items. Okay. Do you have anything to say about the agenda items?
Not specifically, but I would like to address the council with some.
Okay, I think what you want to do, there's public comments immediately following the last item on the agenda. So the agenda is fairly short tonight.
I guess my concern is that I know it's on the agenda, and my comments would be kind of useless after all the issues have been resolved this evening. So, but I leave it at your discretion, Mr. Pepper.
So if his comments have to do with something that's within the budget, you open each budget item, like ordinance LC 24-15, for public comment at that point during the public hearing. So that's when you would get up and make your comment. So when,
Okay, fine.
on ordinance
Which is
LC
number 11 on the
yeah.
agenda.
Sounds
here.
good. Thank you.
Yep. So you're about midway through.
No problem at all.
Okay, thank you.
Is that correct, Counselor?
Okay, yes it is. All right.
Yes, it is. Sorry. Fumbling from my,
Were you shooing the birds away?
yeah, that is correct, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. All right. At this time, we'll open the public hearings. The first items on the agenda are resolutions and ordinances reference fiscal year 25 budget. And this falls under Commissioner Hall. Commissioner Hall, you have 10 items there that we need to make motions on and have public hearings on each one of them.
Thank you, Mr. President. First resolution is Resolution 4056, the fiscal year 2025 property tax rate. Be it resolved that Kent County Levy Court affixes the property tax rate for fiscal year 2025 to be 5.72 cents.
Okay, any commissioners have any questions before I open the public hearing on this? If not, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and testify in favor of Resolution 4056, now's the time to do it. Please come forward. Mark, do we have anyone online in favor?
If you're joining us online and would like to testify in favor of Resolution 4056, please indicate by raising an electronic hand at this time. I see no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. At this time, anyone in the audience who is opposed to Resolution 4056, please come forward. Anyone opposed, please come forward. Mark?
For our guests online, if you would like to speak in opposition to Resolution 4056, please indicate by raising an electronic hand. Still no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners before I close the public hearing on this one? Seeing none, close the public hearing on Resolution 4056 and ask for a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve Resolution 4056, setting the Kent County Levy Court property tax rate for fiscal year 2025 to be 5.72 cents.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Sweeney and Commissioner Masson about the same time. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals Resolution 4056 has been approved, setting the tax rate at 5.72 cents per $100 assessed value. Resolution 4057, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Resolution 4057, fiscal year 2025 Old Mill Acres Suburban Park District tax rate. Be it resolved that Kent County Levy Court affixes the Old Mill Acres Suburban Park District tax rate for fiscal year 2025 to be 8.42 cents.
Okay, this is a public hearing on Resolution 4057, and just like before, anyone in favor of this resolution, please come forward. Anyone in favor? Mark?
For those joining us online, if you'd like to speak in favor of Resolution 4057, please indicate by raising electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Likewise, anyone opposed? Anyone opposed to Resolution 4057? Please come forward. Anyone opposed? Mark?
If there are any guests online that would like to speak in opposition to Resolution 4057, please indicate by raising electronic hand. Still no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any questions by the commissioners before we close the public hearing on Resolution 4057?
Mr. President, real quick. So this resolution, because it was published on Friday last week, the actual rate is off by a decimal point. So because it was already published, we have to make the motion to approve it as is, after which we'll make an amendment to amend it to the correct rate, and then vote on the amendment, and then vote on the original motion. Okay. Thanks, Susan. You didn't have to walk all the way down. I have this.
Gotcha.
Okay, Resolution 4057. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve Resolution 4057, the fiscal year 2025 Old Mill Acres Suburban Park District tax rate. The tax rate to be 8.42 cents.
Second the motion, but request an amendment.
Okay.
I'd like to amend the tax rate from 8.42 to 0.842, which is considerably different. So we need a second on the amendment, vote on that.
Second on the amendment.
Yep, vote on that, and then vote on the original motion.
Motion by Commissioner Sweeney to amend to 0.842, second by Commissioner Scott. So at this time, we need to call the vote on the amendment. Tanaka?
Mr. Angel?
Yes, on the amendment.
Mr. Hall?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes on the amendment.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Scott?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals the amendment rate has been approved. Now we need to vote on the original motion. Original motion amended to 0.842 instead of 8.42.
Mr. Angel?
No.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Ms. Tanaka, let me amend mine to a yes, please. I thought we were voting on the original, which was wrong, which was no. So, thank you. I know, I voted for that part.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals Resolution 4057, amended to 0.842 cents per $100 assessed value has been approved. Resolution 4058 will go through the same process on it as well. Mr. Hall?
Thank you, Mr. President. Resolution 4058, fiscal year 2025 Royal Grant Suburban Park District tax rate. Be it resolved that Kent County Levy Court affixes the Royal Grant Suburban Park District tax rate for fiscal year 2025 to be 9.33 cents.
Second with the amendment, Mr. President, make amendment to
Okay, Resolution 4058, this is a public hearing as well. We'll ask anyone who is in favor of Resolution 4058 to please come forward and offer testimony. Anyone in favor? Mark?
If there's anyone online who would like to speak in favor of Resolution 4058, please indicate by raising electronic hand at this time. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. At this time, anyone opposed to Resolution 4058, please come forward. Anyone opposed?
If there's anyone online that would like to speak in opposition to Resolution 4058, please indicate by raising electronic hand. Still no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve Resolution 4058, the fiscal year 2025 Royal Ranch Suburban Park District tax rate for 2025 to be 9.33 cents.
Mr. President, second the motion and offer an amendment.
Yes, sir.
Move to amend the fiscal year 2025 tax rate from 9.33 to 0.933.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Motion to amend by Commissioner Sweeney, second by Commissioner Angel. Any questions? Questions? If not, we have roll call, please, on the amended original motion. Amendment. We're just going to do the amendment now. Okay. Sweeney, you're making this really very difficult for us.
Yep. Mr. Angel?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Hall?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes on the amendment.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Scott?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals Resolution 4058 has been approved for the amended rate of 0.933. We approved the amendment.
Original.
All right. Yeah, we should. Okay, and now we'll do roll call on the original.
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals Resolution 4058 has been approved at the rate of 0.933 for $100 assessed value. Okay, one more. Resolution 4059, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Resolution 4059, fiscal year 2025 Eagles Nest Suburban Park District tax rate. Be it resolved that Kent County Levy Court affixes the Eagles Nest Suburban Park District tax rate for fiscal year 2025 to be 11.73 cents.
Second.
Okay, now we have to go to public hearing. Well, this is Resolution 4059, Eagles Nest Suburban Park District rate, tax rate. Anyone in favor, please come forward. Anyone in favor, please come forward.
If there's anyone joining us online who would like to speak in favor of Resolution 4059, please indicate by raising your electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. This time, anyone opposed to Resolution 4059? Anyone opposed?
Similarly, if you're online and would like to speak in opposition to Resolution 4059, please indicate by raising your electronic hand. Still no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any questions by commissioners? If not, Commissioner Hall?
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve Resolution 4059, fiscal year 2025 Eagles Nest Suburban Park District tax rate of 11.73 cents.
Second the motion and offer an amendment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Move to amend Resolution 4059 to first change the title from FY24 to FY 2025 and to amend the 2025 tax rate from 11.73 cents to 1.173 cents.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion on the amendment? If not, can we have a roll call on that, please?
Mr. Angel?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Hall?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes on the amendment.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Scott?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes on the amendment.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals motion passed. Now we have a roll call on the amended resolution 4059.
Okay. Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, and I'd like to add, first of all, thanks to the commissioners and the people in the audience who are watching or listening for their patience. This was just an honest decimal point mistake and easy to fix this way as opposed to having to change all the paperwork ahead of time. This just allows us to change it on the back end. For those of you who don't know, suburban park districts are all three, Old Mill Acres, Rural Grant, and Eagles Nest are in my district. And they offer the homeowners in those three subdivisions to pay a fee to the county for care of their open space. So they're not paying an HOA fee, additional fee to care for the open space. And all it does is require us to do a couple cuttings a year. And every 10 or 15 years, we do some tree cuttings. Still don't make enough money off of the suburban park tax rate from each district to cover the work, but it certainly helps out those who have lived in those subdivisions for a long time. So my vote's yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals resolution 4059, Eagles Nest Suburban Park District. Tax rate has been set at 1.173 cents per $100 assessed value. Okay, next one, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Resolution 4060, Kent County Disposal District Number 1 user rates. Be it resolved, the user rate for Kent County Disposal District Number 1 for fiscal year 2025 will be $3.41 per 1,000 gallons of sewage transmitted into the district. This rate will be assessed on sanitary sewer districts and others except septage haulers contracting with Kent County for sewage disposal services.
Thank you. And this also is a public hearing, resolution 4060. Anyone in the audience that is in favor of this rate, please come forward and offer testimony. Anyone in favor?
For those online that would like to speak in favor of Resolution 4060, please indicate by raising electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. At this time, anyone in the audience opposed to the rate assessed for the Kent County Disposal District Number 1 user rates, please come forward. Anyone opposed? Seeing none?
Similarly, if you're online and would like to speak in opposition to Resolution 4060, please indicate by raising electronic hand. Still no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any of the commissioners have any questions before we close the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Now I ask for a motion from Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve Resolution 4060, Kent County Disposal District Number 1 user rate for 2025 to be $3.41 per 1,000 gallons.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Hertz. Any questions? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Angel?
Yes, reason stated by Commissioner Hall.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals resolution 4060 has been approved by Levy Court. Resolution 4061, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Resolution 4061, fiscal year 2025 Milford Library District Tax Rate. Be it resolved that Kent County Levy Court affixes the Milford Library District Tax Rate for fiscal year 2025 to be 1.21 cents.
Second.
All right, this is also is a public hearing, Resolution 4061. Open the public hearing. Ask anyone that is in favor of Resolution 4061 to please come forward.
If you're joining us online and would like to speak in favor of 4061, please indicate by raising electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed to Resolution 4061, tax rate at $1.21 per hundred? Anyone opposed?
If you're joining us online and would like to speak in opposition to 4061, please indicate by raising electronic hand. Still no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions or comments before I close the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and I ask Ms. Tanaka for roll call, please. We got a motion. Commissioner Hall, we need a motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve Resolution 4061, fiscal year 2025 Milford Library District Tax Rate to be affixed at 1.21 cents.
Second.
Thank you. Now, a motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Sweeney. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, now can we have roll call, please? Thank you.
Mr. Angel?
Yes, reasons stated by Commissioner Hall.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals Resolution 4061, the Milford Library tax rate at $1.21 per hundred has been approved by Levy Court. Resolution 4062, Commissioner Hall.
Resolution 4062, fiscal year 25 Duck Creek Library District Tax Rate. Be it resolved that Kent County Levy Court affixes the Duck Creek Library District Tax Rate for fiscal year 2025 to be 0.51 cents.
Okay. Any commissioners have any comments before we open public hearing? Seeing none, this time I'd like to open the public hearing on Resolution 4062, Duck Creek Library District Tax Rate. Anyone in favor, please come forward. Anyone in favor, please come forward.
If you're joining us online and would like to speak in favor of Resolution 4062, please indicate by raising electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience opposed to Resolution 4062, please come forward. Anyone opposed?
Similarly, if you're joining us online and would like to speak in opposition to Resolution 4062, please indicate by raising electronic hand. Still no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any comments or questions before I close the public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and I'll ask Commissioner Hall for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve Resolution 4062, fiscal year 2025 Duck Creek Library District Tax Rate at a rate of 0.51 cents.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Sweeney to approve. Any questions? Seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Angel?
Yes, reasons stated by Commissioner Hall.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Abstain.
Where are you? Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 6 yeas, 1 abstaining.
Thank you. Roll call reveals Resolution 4062, Duck Creek Library Tax Rate set at 0.51 cents per hundred. Resolution 4063, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Resolution 4064, fiscal year 2025 Cesar Rodney Library District tax rate. Be it resolved that Kent County Levy Court affixes the Cesar Rodney Library District tax rate for fiscal year 2025 to be 51 cents. Or 0.5.
Yeah, go back one, we'll go back to it and do them in order here. Lake Forest.
I apologize. Resolution 4063, fiscal year 2025 Lake Forest Library District tax rate. Be it resolved that Kent County Levy Court affixes the Lake Forest Library District tax rate for fiscal year 2025 to be 0.51 cents.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions? If not, we'll open the public hearing. I'll ask anyone in the audience that is in favor of Resolution 4063, Lake Forest Library Tax District rate, to please come forward. Anyone in favor, please come forward.
If you're joining us online and would like to speak in favor of Resolution 4063, please indicate by raising electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed to the Resolution 4063? Please come forward. Anyone opposed?
If you're online and would like to speak in opposition to Resolution 4063, please indicate by raising electronic hand. Still no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any questions before we close the public hearing? Seeing none, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve Resolution 4063, fiscal year 2025 Lake Forest Library District tax rate at a rate of 0.51 cents.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Hertz. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Angel?
Yes, reasons stated by Commissioner Hall.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals Resolution 4063, Lake Forest Library District tax rate at 0.51 cents per hundred. Resolution 4064, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. This time, Resolution 4064, fiscal year 2025 Cesar Rodney Library District tax rate. Be it resolved that Kent County Levy Court affixes the Cesar Rodney Library District tax rate for fiscal year 2025 to be 0.51.
Any commissioners have any questions? If not, we'll open the public hearing on Resolution 4064 and ask anyone who is in favor of the Cesar Rodney Library Tax District rate to please come forward. Anyone in favor?
If you're online and would like to speak in favor of Resolution 4064, please indicate by raising electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. At this time, anyone opposed? Anyone opposed to Cesar Rodney Library Tax District rate, please come forward. Anyone opposed?
If you're online and would like to speak in opposition to Resolution 4064, please indicate by raising electronic hand. Still no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions or comments before we close the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on Resolution 4064 and ask Mr. Tanaka to take roll call, please.
Move to approve Resolution 4064, fiscal year 2025 Cesar Rodney Library District tax rate to be 0.51 cents.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Hertz and Sweeney. Now, any questions on the motion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Angel?
Yes, reasons stated by Commissioner Hall.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals Resolution 4064, sees the Riding Library District tax rate set at 0.51 cents per hundred has been approved. Resolution 4065. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve Resolution 4065, the fiscal year 2025 Capital Library District tax rate. Be it resolved that the Kent County Levy Court affixes the Capital Library District tax rate for fiscal year 2025 to be 0.51 cents.
Thank you. I'll ask anyone in the audience who is in favor of Resolution 4065 to please come forward. Anyone in favor, please come forward.
If you're joining us online and would like to speak in favor of Resolution 4065, please indicate by raising electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed to Resolution 4065?
For our guests online, if you'd like to speak in opposition to Resolution 4065, please indicate by raising electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions? We're closed to public hearing. We're closed to public hearing. I ask Commissioner Hall for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve Resolution 4065, fiscal year 2025 Capital Library District tax rate of 0.51 cents.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Angel to approve Resolution 4065. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Angel?
Yes, reason stated by Commissioner Hall.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals Resolution 4065, Capital Library District tax rate is set at 0.51 cents per hundred.
Mr. President?
Mr. Sweeney.
Real quick, as an explanation for anybody who's listening, we'll pick this up later. Last year, all of the library tax district rates were 3.3 cents per hundred. This year, they're 0.51 cents per hundred. So you would take the 0.51 or take your reassessed value and multiply it by 0.0051 to get what your library tax burden is going to be. We had to do that with every tax rate that we have. So I'd like to commend Director of Finance Susan Durham for all the work that she put into putting this together and making sure it's right for us.
And I'd also like to apologize for sort of appearing to fumble through it. We only do it once per year, and we usually don't do it with any amendments. So we learning experience for all of us, I think, and thank you all for bearing with us on that. So we'll continue with our public hearings. Ordinance LC 24-15 falls under Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance LC 24-15, an ordinance adopting the budget of Kent County, Delaware for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024. Whereas the Kent County Levy Court Commissioners have diligently reviewed actual revenues and expenses for fiscal year 24, projected revenues and expenses for fiscal year 25, and whereas after careful consideration, the Levy Court Commissioners have developed budgets for all general, restricted, and other funds. Now, therefore, the Levy Court of Kent County, Delaware, hereby ordains, Section 1, the Kent County Levy Court fiscal year 2025 budget, incorporated herein by this reference, is adopted as the annual operating budget of Kent County, Delaware for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2025. Section 2. This ordinance is adopted pursuant to the powers conferred upon the Levy Court of Kent County, Delaware, and Delaware Code Title 9, Section 4110. Section 3. If any section, paragraph, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance shall be declared invalid for any reason whatsoever, Such decision shall not affect the remaining portions of this ordinance, which shall continue in full force and effect. And to this end, the provisions of this ordinance are hereby declared to be severable.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing on ordinance LC 24-15. Any commissioners have any comments before we open the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. I ask anyone who is in favor of ordinance LC 24-15 to please come forward. Anyone in favor?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of ordinance LC 2415, please indicate by raising electronic hand. See no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to ask anyone who is opposed to ordinance LC 24-15 to please come forward.
Good evening, Council. My name is Greg Morris. I'm a lifelong resident of Delaware. Until recently, I just moved to Milton, but my law office is still in here in Dover, Delaware. The reason why I'm here this evening is, to some degree, not necessarily about the budget, but what is included in the budget and what's happening. I've lived in this area. I grew up in Smyrna, lived there all my life. My wife grew up in Milford. We compromised, moved to Dover, lived in Old Mill Acres for 30 years until at least January. All of our children attended Holy Cross through 8th grade, went to Caesar Rodney High School, and some of them went to college at University of Delaware, two at West Virginia and one at East Carolina. The reason why I'm here tonight is I want to speak up in regards to, in that budget, apparently, you are eliminating one position as GIS administrator. That position is held by my daughter. And I think she's been treated unfairly. And as a parent, at some point, you got to stick up for her. My daughter, as I said, attended Holy Cross, went to Caesar Rodney, went to West Virginia University, obtained her degree in environmental and energy planning, management, also obtained a degree, a minor in GIS. She was dean's list every semester and did a great job. She graduated in 2020. Unfortunately for her, that was during COVID. She didn't get to walk and get her diploma like most kids. So she had to return home early because I remember it clearly. She was on spring break in Florida when all the stuff was happening, and I called her immediately and said, get your butt back to Delaware. She came back, and then so she started the job location, trying to see where she was going to work. She would have had numerous opportunities in other states with her degree. In fact, she had opportunities, and ultimately she came to me and said, Dad, I'd like to just stay in Delaware. Okay, yeah, you're breaking my heart. Yes, that's what I want. And the reason why that's important, because in my family, I'm very, very fortunate to have all my relatives basically living in this area. My grandmother was one of the first classes to graduate from Caesar Rodney High School in 2019, 2020, whenever it was. My mom, Virginia Ennis, grew up in Smyrna. All her relatives were there. My uncle served on this council. And all my Ennis family is there. It's awesome. So to have my daughter stay in this area meant a lot. So she got a job, Davis Bow and Friedel Engineering Company in Milford. She worked in Milford. Loved the job. She was living at the beach at the time. Just to give you an idea how hard working she was while she was there, at nights and weekends, she waitressed at the Lewis Oyster Club, a restaurant. She also got her real estate license, and on weekends and nights, she sold houses. As a matter of fact, she sold mine in 10 days in late December of this past year. So she was there. I have a lot of contacts in this area, and somehow I found out that the county was hiring some positions in the GIS area. She loves it. She absolutely loves doing that kind of work. She had been doing it with Davis, Bowen, and Friedel. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, Hannah, I see the county's hiring. Why don't you apply? She said, you sure, Dad? Yeah, I think you'd be a perfect government employee. You work hard, you show up, you do what's asked, and you're loyal to no end. So she applied. She went through numerous interviews, and there was some discussion before whether or not she was going to qualify to be the GIS administrator. And this was in 2021. So after the previous administrator was there, I believe, in the interviews, the IT director, the former HR director was there, and I think other people were there as well. And they all determined that she would be great for the position. She was hired. I was ecstatic. I'm only a mile and a half from here. I could have lunch with her, all those things. So she started her job. She loved it. She was going through the process, doing what was asked of her, because apparently, and again, please don't ask me what GIS stands for, what the job is. I have no clue. She's tried to describe it to me before, and I just don't understand it. But apparently the county was behind in their GIS, and they wanted to upgrade, so that's one of the things she was hired to do, apparently. So everything was going great, and then things started to change in the county. Her former boss, because again, she was initially placed in IT, director, I believe she retired sometime in 2022. Then the former administrator retired, not too long after that, and then the HR director eventually retired. That's when things started to change for her. Apparently, they began a power struggle someplace in this building, and I don't know who was involved or have any idea about that, so I'm not going to cast any aspersions about any individual person. But I can tell you this, that there was a power struggle as to where they wanted her. Apparently, IT wanted to keep her, and there were other departments that wanted her and wanted to at least have some control of what she was doing for the county. My daughter was being used as a pawn. She was not the problem. It's just the higher-ups in this building couldn't decide where they wanted her or what they wanted her to do. She would call me constantly. Eventually, again, a new administrator was eventually hired. The issue still was not resolved. I think there was some discussion that there would have to be some sort of an agreement where she was going to end up, but it didn't happen. I guess everyone was entrenched in their positions. And again, she would call me and said, Dad, you know, what's going on? I said, hang in there, honey. This happens when changes are made. You just got to hang in there. Everything will shake out. Just keep your head up, do your job. Fine. Well, unfortunately, it still went on. She was put in a meeting with some people because they couldn't agree where to put her. And the question was asked of her, what's your solution to this, Hannah? Again, my daughter was 25 at the time. I refer to her as a young girl. I do. And she gave a naive answer. I don't know, maybe just put me in my own division. I think that's a perfect answer, because if they couldn't decide where to put her, and she was laughed at and said, watch what you wish for, Hannah. We'll have to let you go. Within minutes of that meeting, she called me. And I said, hang in there. It's going to work out, I promise you. Again, I was the one reason why she applied for the job. So I'm kind of pot committed at this point. I got my wife giving me grief. Hey, your daughter's catching grief there. Why'd you tell her to work here? And I said, just hang in there. I promise you, it'll work out. Not soon after that meeting, she was then transferred to a new division, a temporary 90-day situation. She didn't understand what that really meant or what was going to happen to her after that 90 days. Well, towards the end of that 90 days, she was pulled into a room and informed they were going to outsource her job and they were going to eliminate her position as of July 1st, 2024. I recall that, and she recalls that, for a couple of reasons. One thing I haven't mentioned yet, during this process, she's pregnant. She's due to give birth in March of this year, March of 2024. And she calls me upset. And why I remember this, all her sorority sisters from West Virginia are flying in that day because they're going to do one of those gender reveals, which I can't stand, but I was there. So she had all her friends come in. Now she's being told she's losing her job, okay? And so she had just bought a house on her own with no help from me whatsoever as a 25-year-old widow. I think that's astounding. She's going to lose her job. She's having a baby. She needs health care. So she is freaking out. And I said, and eventually I said, let's just get through the weekend. We'll deal with this. And again, just because of my line of work, I try to focus on a positive, at least for my daughter, and told her, look, this happens all the time. And the reason being is because soon thereafter, once she was informed, there had been rumors in the county that there were going to be a lot of positions eliminated because of budget crunch. And I happen to represent various towns, and I know that for a fact that we're dealing with that as well. And you got a tough job with that. You do. Times have changed a little bit. So I said to her, Hannah, this is the world we live in. You'll find another job. So I told her, you'll land on your feet. Because I know she will, regardless of what happens. So, unfortunately for her, things got worse. Not because of the county. About 5 weeks early, she had to be rushed to the hospital for just C-section. So why I bring it up is, so immediately when she was told she was being let go, she was trying to plot her courts. She only had a limited amount of time because she only been with the county so long that she understood that if she was going to give birth sometime in mid-March, she would still have to come back before July 1st. But unfortunately, because she gave birth 5 weeks early, that changed the whole plot for her. Because then that meant she was going to have to go back sooner. And so she gave birth 5 weeks early. Child was put in NICU. So she had a lot of stuff going on. So in the meantime, so she didn't focus on getting a job at that point because, again, she knows her deadline's July 1st. But she fights through it. Unfortunately, the baby has to have 5 surgeries to her mouth. So she's been dealing with that. So at this point, she knows she has to go back May 1st because that's when her time runs out. She just didn't have time built up. And as I always do, I want to give credit to people who are deserving of it. About 2 weeks before May 1st, she reached out to whoever she reached out, who she was working for, and said, my time's coming up. What's the plan? Can I work from home maybe? Or do you want me to come back in the office? And there were certain employees here that donated time to her. Awesome. I don't know who they are, but thank you. And there was one other great thing that was done. Ultimately, the county, someone, again, I don't know who was in charge of it, made a determination this was an emergency situation and that they would pay her through July 1st. And that sounds great to me, and I thank them for making that decision, with one exception. I hope they did it for the right reason rather than they didn't want her to come back. And the reason why I say that is this. Within a week of her giving birth, she called me and said, "Dad, I have a couple personal items in my desk." It's like a phone charger, something else she wanted for me to bring over to the hospital. I said, "I'll go over." So I don't know who I called. I may have emailed and said, "Hey, can I stop by, get something out of Hannah's desk?" Well, when I arrived, her desk was fully packed up and there were 2 boxes full of all her stuff, which in my mind was, don't come back. Here's all your stuff. Have at it. I didn't even tell my daughter that initially. So everything was going great to some degree. The baby's doing great. And, we're plugging along. She's plugging along, trying to find a job. She's got great prospects, and hopefully that'll turn out. But I guess the last straw that broke my back was this. Again, she was led to believe to some degree, and I don't know who told her this or if she heard her through the rumor mills, is that numerous positions were being eliminated. And then 2 weeks ago, I guess she receives correspondence just because she saw a county employee. It was revealed that the county is eliminating 1 position for the year 2024-25. 1. Hers. I find it hard to believe that this county couldn't have saved her position. Now, I understand there may be other people who are about to retire and you may not replace them. I get it. But if you're eliminating 1 position, there's something this county could have done and should have done to keep her on. Because we know, or at least she was told, they're outsourcing her job, which means you're going to pay someone to do what she was going to do, maybe a little less. Sometimes you never know with these contracts, end up being more. So in my mind, the amount that was going to cost the county to keep her was not going to be great. That made me mad. And that's when, at the point I said, because again, all along I kept telling her, "Hannah, fine, we'll get a job. You'll do great. I'm not worried about her. She will." But that was the breaking point for me, that to eliminate 1 position who someone I think would be a great employee for 30 years here, and she wasn't given that opportunity. I'm not up here begging for her job, and she didn't ask me. She's online. I think that ship has sailed. Because even if all of you vote to somehow reinstate her, and I don't know how that works, she would have a target on her back when she came back. Because everyone in the building knew she was being let go, and she would have to slink back in here. I'm here because no one spoke up for her. The only thing I ask is this. Maybe 1, 2, all of you, find out what happened. I can tell you what, she's online. Give her a call. Let her tell her version of the facts. Don't rely on her very biased father. Give her a call. See what she has to say and see if it's even half credible. Because even if it's half credible, what happened to her was wrong. And then hopefully it won't happen again to someone else. I want to thank you for your time and for venting. I just had to get a few things off my chest. I see my wife's on there now as well. Thank God she didn't come, because she'd probably been a little bit more boisterous than I. only benefit I get is we normally go to trivia on Tuesday nights in Park Place, and I got out of that tonight. But I want to thank you for all your time. Please, if you have any questions of Hannah, give her a call. She'd be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Morris? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a
Appreciate
nice
you being here. Thank you. Okay, moving on, ordinance LC 24-15. I believe we were at the point of those that were not in favor. Please come forward. And Mark, do we have anyone?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in opposition to LC 2415, please indicate by raising your electronic hand at this time. I see no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions or comments before we close the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll ask Commissioner Hall for a motion on ordinance LC 24-15.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve ordinance LC 24-15, an ordinance adopting the annual operating budget for Kent County, Delaware for fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Hertz. Any questions on the motion? Mr. Angel.
Thank you, Mr. President. The only thing before Mr. Morris even spoke, was actually going through this and looking at number 14 on the budget notes about the reclassification and elimination of one position. As you know, I'm not in favor of getting rid of employees. I never have been unless there's something that they've done that needs to be dealt with. But at the same time, I've always argued GIS needs to be a standalone. And at one time we had 4 people that used to run this county in GIS. And so I will be voting for the budget, but I'm going to ask that number 14 I can't accept in that motion, in my vote. I don't support that part.
Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a question. The budget does show a GIS FY25 personnel base pay and benefits of nearly $370,000 for the year. If we're outsourcing that, where is that base pay going if it's being outsourced?
The projected savings by eliminating position and moving to contractual services, the compensation line goes down, the contractual services line goes up. But based on my conversations with Ms. Kiefer, we stand to save a considerable amount by making the change.
So, but that's not included in this budget? That's something that we'll do an adjustment later?
No, we did an estimate on the contractual costs of moving over. The budget we proposed was to eliminate the position, use the cost savings in other areas, but then, so presumably, if we estimated correctly, we won't need to amend the budget in that area as long as the costs come in as projected.
Okay, so I don't understand that. If we're, if I'm going to vote on an FY25 annual operating budget that includes a GIS FY25 budget that includes $370,000 in personnel, $3,000 in training, $1,000 in travel, insurance, office supplies, legal and contractual facility software for $455,000, then that should have been addressed ahead of time as $455,000 in legal and contractual instead of including the personnel in there. It's a little deceiving.
We have multiple people who work in GIS not only in planning but in other departments. So the GIS budget, that's a division within the Department of Planning, has the expenses for all the personnel. So this one particular position, which was in the last fiscal year funded in the IT department because it was part of the IT budget, not the GIS budget, the employee was temporarily reassigned. And to get to the core issue is that one of the reasons we can save money is that we don't need 40 hours worth of work a week in GIS administration. We can live on considerably less than that. So by only using the amount of services we need, we can save considerably more money. And yeah, I certainly appreciate Mr. Morris's heartfelt plea, but if we have an employee who has 10 hours of work a week and nothing to do for the other 30 hours, I think we owe it to the 326 other employees who do 40 hours worth of work a week to try to look for some kind of creative solution in that regard.
Ms. Morris was afforded the opportunity to apply for another job within the county.
Yes, and she also has, if there's a position for which she's qualified, I believe our personnel rules afford her essentially preferential treatment for hiring. If there's a position in the county that she would be qualified for, and then and the director of that department would want to hire her.
Mr. Administrator, when this took place, I know we've talked about this GIS position a few times. I think, a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, I confirmed it sitting right up here that that position was being eliminated on open forum here. Just so that I'm clear on things, was there a conversation that was taken with Ms. Mars that was agreed upon by both the county as well as her to put where we're at now as far as her health insurance, her pay, et cetera, till July?
She was a recipient of donated leave. When there was insufficient donated leave, I, under the policy you adopted, grant her extraordinary leave through the end of the fiscal year to allow her to continue receiving her health benefits and her pay.
That was something that you also had done, correct, on with your powers as administrator?
That is correct, although I'll give credit to, it was the recommendation of the HR director and her department directors that she be granted that consideration, but particularly given the circumstances with her medical condition, thought it was warranted. And certainly it's within the power of the commissioners and not unusual if someone is downsized to extend their health benefits for a certain period of time. Beyond that, is employee always has the right to pay COBRA, but that would be something that we didn't anticipate in the budget. But if that's something you want us to consider, that certainly we could do to provide some measure of financial relief and to ensure there's no disruption in her health insurance. So when I've been involved in downsizing before, it's normally been 3 months, but I've been involved with organizations where they've done more than that. But if that's something, because of the circumstances, because it is the only position we eliminated in the budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we were in the middle of the roll call, correct? We had a motion. Had a motion by Commissioner Hall and second by Commissioner Hertz to approve. So need to have a roll call.
Mr. Angel?
Yes, I support the budget, other than, like I said, number 14, reclassification, elimination of position.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney? Oops.
Sorry, Ms. Laurie. Just so that I'm clear, I had a conversation today in reference to this exact conversation, but I support the budget for more than one reason this year, and a lot of it is to do with the improvements that the county's finally getting to do with several departments through some of the ARPA funding, the employees being held at, a maintain of growth. So there's a lot of good in the budget, and the finalization of the usage of the ARPA funds so that we're not losing it, and most importantly, a lot of training that's going out this year. So my support is yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
I agree with the reassessment, the tax rates that we set tonight. I agree with the sewer rates, the use of ARPA funds in order to complete our commitment to those who received ARPA funds, the drawdown of retained earnings, expenditures as they were listed, our pension, our OPEB, our health insurance, training, moving forward, capital projects, all that. However, I'm going to register a protest vote in the elimination of one position. So my vote's no.
Mr. Pepper?
My vote's yes, and going along with what Commissioner Scott said. And also, I was very pleased to be able to continue additional funding to the fire service this year. So that being said, yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 6 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you. Roll call reveals ordinance LC 24-15 has been approved by Levy Court. Commissioner Hall will move on to resolution 4066.
Thank you, Mr. President. Resolution 4066, command for collection of sewer delinquent accounts. Be it resolved that Kent County Levy Court commands the Director of Finance to collect sewer delinquent accounts by district as of March 31st, 2024.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions before we go to public hearing on resolution 4066? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. We'll open public hearing. I ask anyone who is in favor of resolution 4066, please come forward. Anyone in favor of resolution 4066?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of resolution 4066, please indicate by raising your electronic hand. No hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed to resolution 4066? Anyone opposed?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in opposition to resolution 4066, please indicate by raising electronic hand at this time. Still no hands raised, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any commissioners have any questions before I close public hearing? Close public hearing. I'll turn over to Commissioner Hall for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to approve resolution 4066, command to the Director of Finance to collect sewer delinquent accounts by district as of March 31st, 2024.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Scott to approve resolution 4066. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, Ms. Tanaka, please.
Mr. Angel?
Yes, for reasons stated by Commissioner Hall.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals resolution 4066 has been approved by Levy Court. This is the close of public hearings. There is no old business for this evening. New business, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is neither an ordinance nor a resolution, and it's not part of public hearings. So if the county solicitor finds that this is a process foul, let me know. But for each of the resolutions, 4056 through 4065, Kent County Levy Court commands the receiver of taxes and county treasurer of Kent County to receive the taxes that at the rates that we have fixed earlier this evening. And upon adoption of those resolutions, the commands are issued to the Director of Finance to collect the taxes, so we will transmit those to her.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hall, second by Commissioner Scott. Any questions on the motion? If not, Mr. Naka, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Angel?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Hertz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maston?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
Mr. President, roll call reveals 7 yeas.
Thank you. Roll call reveals Resolution 4066 has been approved by Levy Court. Excuse me, I've read the wrong line there. Roll call reveals the commands to the Director of Finance has been approved by Levy Court. And other business, do we have need for executive session this evening? All right, we don't need that.
No.
Any, thank you, Craig. Any informational items? Any informational items? Seeing none, any public comments? Any public comments on any issue?
On behalf of myself, President of Little Creek Fire Company, and President of Kent County Volunteer Firefighters Association, I would just like to express my thanks from myself and all the member companies in the county of your continued support of all of the emergency services in the county, up to including the paramedics and all of the volunteer fire companies. As you all know, prices are rising. It's getting tougher to do business, and we very much appreciate your continued support. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any commissioners have any comments?
Kenny, thank you guys for all that you do. I mean, you guys constantly go at it. I think you were out there at Magnolia for 3 or 4 hours yesterday fighting a field fire, and guys come back in Frederica and Houston and everywhere else and was washing trucks and rolling hose. So it doesn't ever get any easier, and you're right, the expense level behind it is constantly climbing. So I think Levy Court, on behalf of all of Levy Court, everybody worked very hard this year to try to make that a little small increase happen. And I think you should be quite pleased with all of Levy Court, because it took all of us working together to make it happen. So thank you.
Thank you again for your support.
Thank you.
And thanks in advance for the fire study. I mean, that's going to be work for you guys, and there's going to be some pushing paper on that, but just thanks in advance for cooperating with the consultant on that, because, Sussex and Newcastle are trying to row that boat, so I think we're all going to be better off when we get the results of that study back.
I agree, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenny. Any other public comments? Any other public comments? Seeing none, any commissioner comments? Any commissioner comments? If not, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sweeney, second by Commissioner Angel to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Anybody want to stay? I don't think so. We are adjourned.
Thank you.